Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It's Friday, August 29th, 2025. Time for another show. Time to wrap up August on the show. We'll be back next week, although I guess I gotta get together and talk with Greg a little bit. Monday's Labor Day. This is Friday of Labor Day weekend, so bye. No show. All right, well, we're not really out of here. Not only are we not taking off early and taking off Friday of Labor Day weekend, I'm sitting here pondering, should I be doing, do a show? Like, everybody will be home, but on the other hand, Labor Day, right? So, I don't know. I guess I'm sure that Greg could use the time off, so could I. But gosh, there's so much to tell you, and, we're not going to fit it in all of today's show. So, I don't know. I feel like we start next week backed up if we don't do it. But, on the other hand, what if there's something really super fun that I have to do? Someone tell me there's something super fun I'm supposed to be doing on Monday morning. All right. Well, at any rate, I think the tradition has been to give yourself the break. It's the end of summer. It's sad. It doesn't make any particular sense as an adult without kids of primary school age to be worried about that. But I don't know. And I was thinking of pondering it last night. Well, the end of the nice weather, etc. The weather's been brutal. This is the best time of year. Anyway, I don't know what it is. I'm just conditioned to feel sad at the end of summer, and I'm not certain why. But don't worry. It's not because the administration sucks or anything. That was going to happen, and it'll happen all 4 seasons. There are 4, like the landscapers. They are 4 seasons affair with this stuff. There's lots going on. Lots to catch up on. Something that derailed me right before airtime. This is something we got to return to because it's a recurring story for us. I happened to see on Blue Sky Tracy Tully, who is the New Jersey, I guess a New Jersey reporter rather than the New Jersey reporter for the New York Times. But they may have only one. I don't know. It's New Jersey. They tend to do that sort of thing. But Tracy Tully is on it. She tweets, or whatever the hell you call it on Blue Sky, I spent the last several days wandering around federal courthouses in New Jersey, which is tough, to see how a judicial ruling which concluded that Alina Habba had no authority to be the state's top prosecutor was affecting criminal cases. That sounds like suspiciously like reporting, and in fact, it has resulted in an article that she co-wrote with, or gets co-credit with anyway, on the byline with Jonah Bromwich. And I don't know. I'll ask her how she feels about that. Anyway, the piece is inside the crisis gripping New Jersey's federal courts. So I guess we're sort of getting the answer. How's it affecting federal cases in New Jersey? Crisis. Trials and hearings have been delayed since a judge ruled that Alina Habba was serving unlawfully as U.S. attorney. That seems like something you want to avoid if you're a U.S. attorney. The uncertainty may last for months. Well, that's chaos, and Trump loves it, of course. So he'll do nothing to remedy it, of course. But here's what's happening. Even for August, the federal court complex in Newark has been eerily quiet over the past week. Trials adjourned, guilty pleas put on hold, hearings canceled to be rescheduled once the confusion passes. The court has all but reached a standstill and may stay there for months after a judge raised questions about the legitimacy of New Jersey's top federal prosecutor, Alina Habba. It actually sounds like the judge said, there's no controversy about the legitimacy of Alina Habba. She's illegitimate in the role. The end. See you later. You can appeal, but that's what we've ruled. Ms. Habba, a former personal lawyer to President Trump, has led the U.S. Attorney's Office since late March, courting controversy as she pursued high-profile cases against local Democrats. That's what you do if you're a Trump U.S. attorney. Last month, the Justice Department resorted to an extraordinary series of legal maneuvers to keep her in office. Last week, a judge ruled that those moves had been unconstitutional and said that Ms. Habba had not been the lawful leader of the office since July 1st. Had the judge's order taken effect immediately, because, of course, no judge ruling against the Trump administration allows their rulings to take effect immediately. No. Got to jump out of the way of these habitual lawbreakers. Anyway, had he done it, Ms. Habba would have been disqualified from participating in ongoing cases, but the judge, Matthew W. Brand of the Middle District of Pennsylvania. Why Pennsylvania? Because all New Jersey judges were disqualified from ruling on the case because the New Jersey federal bar are the ones who weigh in on who's the U.S. attorney when there's a vacancy. And they were all disqualified from sitting in the case by this ridiculous maneuver, just as the Trump administration tried to disqualify everybody in Maryland the other day. Anyway, they bring in Matthew Brand from the Middle District of Pennsylvania, and his ruling placed a hold on his own ruling pertaining to Ms. Habba so that an appeals court could consider the case. But I guess they got to, find another one somewhere else. Nonetheless, the courts are bracing for the possibility that any proceedings Ms. Habba has touched or those involving prosecutors she supervises, or any prosecutors she's touched for that matter, could be challenged by defense lawyers. Ms. Habba could reduce the risk to current and future cases by recusing herself until the appeals court makes a decision. That would be one good way to go in the interest of justice. So that's not happening. She has thus far declined to do so. In response, judges are delaying all manner of proceedings, often to avoid the possibility that they might be thrown out entirely if Judge Brand's ruling is upheld. So everybody's scrambling to get around her refusal to just jump out of the way and allow justice to proceed, because that's not her interest. Isn't that something? The appeals process is likely to take some time. In a brief filed with the appeals court this week, the Justice Department officials on the case said that they had reached a scheduling agreement with defense lawyers who had challenged Ms. Habba's legitimacy. On Wednesday, the court accepted the agreement, indicating that oral arguments in the appeal will not take place until October or even early November. Ms. Habba did not respond to messages left at her office seeking comment about the district-wide stagnation in criminal cases because she don't care. The delays are wreaking havoc on those whose lives are bound up in the New Jersey court system, and they obviously don't care about that either. Why not? Whose lives tend to be bound up in the New Jersey court system? Well, let's start with Juan Rivera Sanchez of Irvington, New Jersey. Can't imagine the Trump administration caring about ruining his life. He was led into court Wednesday afternoon by U.S. Marshals hoping to resolve a gun possession charge from 2023 and be freed. He had pleaded guilty to a lesser charge last week and has already spent 19 months in jail since his arrest, a penalty that the judge acknowledged in court was within the appropriate range, according to the plea agreement. His older sister, Nitsa Sepulveda, had traveled from Pennsylvania to be with him in court, like the judge had to come in from Pennsylvania to try and deal with this situation. She carried a bag with a change of clothes, hopeful that he would be released in time for dinner as planned. Instead, the judge refused to hold a final hearing on the terms of his bail, in part because his co-defendant's plea hearing had been canceled the day before. I don't want to come back. I'm done, Mr. Rivera Sanchez, dressed in drab green jail uniform, said as he shook his head vigorously. I love you, he said over his shoulder to his sister as he was led away by the marshals. I love you too, Ms. Sepulveda answered. I've lost hope, she said outside the court. You think he's coming out. Now I have to go tell my 13 grandkids he's not. Well, I don't have to tell them all, I guess. New Jersey's Chief Judge Renee Marie Bumb, B-U-M-B. I don't know how do you pronounce that one. I'll ask Judge. You hope it's not Judge Bum, but what else is it? It's not going to get much better. Anyway, the chief judge did not reply to several requests for comment about the widespread court cancellations or whether she had offered guidance to judges as the matter is brought before the Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit. A representative for the court clerk said that no district-wide directive had been filed, but the collective statewide confusion was unmistakable. There's a great deal of uncertainty, said Michael Baldassare, a criminal defense lawyer with cases pending in federal court. Unfortunately, we are in uncharted territory, and past experience provides no roadmap. Yeah. On Tuesday, criminal defense lawyers in New Jersey held an informal Zoom meeting to discuss the status of the litigation involving Ms. Habba and strategies for handling pending criminal cases. I have clients who want to go forward, said Thomas Ambrosio, a defense lawyer who recently had a murder trial postponed by 2 months over his objections. He should have objected strenuously right? Everybody knows that you can fix that one. In fact, we have sound on that.
Objection. Overruled. No. No, I strenuously object. Oh,
strenuously.
Wow. Strenuously object, and I should take some time to reconsider.
Yes, well, you should, Judge, and this is because it's Alina Habba's fault, and why not go ahead and dismiss the charges while you're at it? Well, let's see. Another of his clients appeared less upset on Wednesday by the court's logjam. She was there for a status conference regarding a violation of supervised release, but the judge, Brian Martinotti, abruptly canceled the hearing after holding a brief closed-door meeting with the lawyers who were present. That delayed her next court date by at least 10 weeks. She declined to comment but seemed pleased by the outcome. Okay, some people have other reasons for it. The politics of the situation, though, are complicated. The district court judges who are now adjourning cases, waiting for guidance from an appeals court, were the ones who declined to extend Habba's tenure as the state's top federal prosecutor. As Ms. Habba's short-term appointment was coming to an end, the judges instead selected Desiree L. Grace, a veteran prosecutor, to take over as U.S. attorney, but you know the story. Ms. Grace was immediately fired by the Justice Department as it moved to keep Ms. Habba in charge, setting in motion the legal uncertainty now plaguing the District of New Jersey. And we should mention here, as we've gathered along the way from reading so many other articles about the situation, don't forget, Desiree Grace had aligned herself with the Republicans and performed well enough to be elevated to first assistant and therefore occupied the space that would be the platform from which you would fill a vacancy if you just couldn't get an appointment through. All the boxes were checked, but Alina Habba, being a personal favorite of Donald Trump's, everything had to be turned upside down and shaken out to keep her in place because she's so super valuable as a federal prosecutor, up to and including firing an actual competent replacement who had aligned herself with you all this time. Maybe not Trump per se, but the Republican Party. And guess what? The leopard ate her face. Oh, well. Ms. Grace was immediately fired, as we said, by the Justice Department to make way for Habba. Most of the hearings are being canceled in advance that are all this fallout from this situation. Most hearings being canceled in advance before the parties arrive at court. But on Tuesday, Anton Poindexter traveled to Newark from Long Island, prepared to plead guilty to an offense stemming from a 2021 indictment on drug distribution charges. In a whisper, as he waited for the judge to enter the courtroom, he told his lawyer he was nervous. If you weren't nervous, you'd be insane, the lawyer, Daniel J. Welsh, said. Then a courtroom deputy, Amy Anderson, approached and explained that the judge, Madeline Cox Arleo, was unlikely to proceed with the hearing, citing Judge Brand's ruling last week. There's been a new directive internally, Ms. Anderson said. Minutes later, Judge Arleo took the bench and confirmed that she was canceling the hearing, but said she would permit Mr. Poindexter, who is in a drug treatment program, to remain free on bail. In light of the uncertainty around the authority of the U.S. Attorney, I think it would be prudent to adjourn, Judge Arleo said. The prosecutor objected to the defendants remaining free, arguing that he'd been stopped in New York carrying a large amount of prescription drugs. The judge countered that Mr. Poindexter would be more apt to remain clean and sober outside of jail, but she warned him that he would get no more chances. If he has a drug problem, she told the prosecutor, the best place for him is in treatment. True, good point at the end. I don't know how relevant to being Alina Habba being disqualified from the job it was, but just a little color commentary, for which we thank Tracy Tully, and just keeping us up to date on what's happening there. They really, of course, unleashed a world of chaos and confusion, but since Trump likes that so much, I guess there'll be no convincing him to step in and do something about that chaos. Anyway, number of other things on the agenda today. By the way, we'll check back in on another story we talked about the other day, the Greenland spying story. Apparently, you remember that the foreign minister of Denmark had summoned the top official of the U.S. embassy to Denmark to his office to, I guess, dress him down about this. We have no ambassador yet to Denmark, so it was the chargé d'affaires, probably one of the career foreign service diplomats there, who had to go and get an earful about Trump administration and very likely Trump-directed espionage against an ally and stand there in the office and say, I know, and I know you know, but okay, let's do this thing. Well, I guess there's a response from the United States government now. U.S. tells Denmark to calm down over the alleged Greenland influence operation. Sir, I need you to calm down. Is problem. Maybe that was the instruction. You're going to have to go and tell the foreign minister, sir, I need you to calm down now. Paul Kirby, the Europe digital editor for the BBC, has filed this report. The U.S. has told Denmark to calm down after the top U.S. diplomat in Copenhagen was summoned over claims that Americans had been conducting covert operations in Greenland. Denmark's public broadcaster, DR, quoted sources as saying the aim was to infiltrate society in general, right? Greenlandic society. And we couldn't get this done without getting discovered. Isn't that something? What tradecraft we must have been displaying there. Denmark's public broadcaster told us about this. That's DR. The idea, infiltrate society and promote its secession from Denmark to the U.S., though it was unable to clarify who the men were working for. Well, they weren't telling anybody to secede from Denmark and join El Salvador, right? Or Canada, or Russia, for that matter. So my guess is they were working for, well, I guess the only question is, were they working for the CIA, the American government in general in some way? Or was it, in fact, Don Jr. and Eric running around with J.D. Vance attempting to do this project on the side? Who knows? It may very well be that Donald Trump gave the green light to somebody and said, and if you make it work, I'll give you half of Greenland. No one knows. A White House official would not confirm the influence campaign was underway, but said, we think the Danes need to calm down. This was sort of being passed around this morning on social media under the additional commentary of, well, the U.S. doesn't deny that it was doing this. So, you can take that non-denial as a confirmation, I guess. Foreign Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen. That's my best. I was advised that was the pronunciation of L-O-K-K-E in Danish. Løkke, like with a little in there. I don't know. Probably not a hard R. Anyway, Lars Løkke Rasmussen said, any attempt to interfere with the internal affairs in the Kingdom of Denmark will, of course, be unacceptable. And I think that's the same quote as you heard the other day because it prompts you to use the unacceptable soundbite. A U.S. State Department spokesperson said Chargé d'Affaires Mark Stroh had met with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, adding that he had a productive conversation that reaffirmed the strong ties between Greenland, Denmark, and the U.S. That's all he could do. The spokesperson could not comment on the actions of private U.S. citizens in Greenland, but said the U.S. had always respected the right of the people of Greenland to determine their own future. They just wanted to tell them how to do it, I guess. U.S. President Trump has said several times he wants to annex Greenland, a semi-autonomous part of the Kingdom of Denmark, and Vice President J.D. Vance has accused Copenhagen of underinvesting in the territory because he cares about it so much. On a visit to Greenland a few months ago, Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen warned the U.S. you cannot annex another country. I don't think anything is going to be added. I'm looking, trying to scan, and this is largely, I think, a rewrite of what we read the other day, or at least, I think this was not the article that we read the other day. It's very odd, but it seems to be very reminiscent of it. So maybe the only new news here is that they had their meeting and Denmark was told to calm down. But the rest of the background seems pretty much the same. So, all right, there are so many other things that perhaps we move on from there and down the list. Any other callbacks that I have to go to? Oh, yeah. Well, unfortunately, yes. But then some new dumb stuff. How dumb do you want to go right off the bat? Like super dumb? And let's see, NBC News or The Hill. What will I read about this one? We'll read the NBC News. Disappointing NBC News story. I mean, it's not NBC News' fault here, but you may recall part of this story, which is now getting worse. The headline, I guess, kind of says it all. January 6th, rioter Ashli Babbitt offered full military funeral, Air Force confirms. Sack the Capitol, get shot by the cops, whatever. Don't worry about it. And that's not even that's not the only outrage, I guess, since the Trump administration has come back. And you'll recall, and I think they mentioned in the article, that at some point the Babbitt family sued the federal government for a wrongful death, which wasn't even wrongful. And ordinarily, you're not going to get anywhere with that suit. That's the sort of thing that they grant sovereign immunity about very frequently. But I don't know whether they would have done that here. But, I imagine you wouldn't have gotten anywhere with the wrongful death claim, given that you were smashing windows to climb through a locked door to sack the Capitol while members of Congress were running through the same room that you were trying to enter. Anyway, but with the changing of the guard, so to speak, the handing over of the keys at the DOJ from the Biden administration to the Trump administration, all you have to do, and the Trump administration can accomplish this much, is say, don't show up, just drop the case or drop the defenses. Say, you know what? Those guys are right. We go in as now we, get to speak for the DOJ. The DOJ goes in and says, no, actually a pretty good suit. We should settle. And then they paid our family $5 million. Oh, no. Anyway, the subheader doesn't tell you much. Tells you who Babbitt was. You remember who she was. Here's the story, the new part of the story. Let's see. Moshe Gaines and David K. Lee are the reporters here for NBC News. The Air Force, we are told, has offered full military funeral honors to Ashli Babbitt, the rioter who was fatally shot by police as she stormed the U.S. Capitol during the January 6th riot 4 years ago. Officials said Thursday. They do this all the time for people who, as members of the armed forces, switch sides and try to smash civilian control of the American government and military. Babbitt, 35, was an Air Force veteran who went to Washington to protest Donald Trump's defeat in the 2020 election, her family has said, and was among the rioters seeking to break into the House chamber. And as Babbitt tried to climb through a broken window of a barricaded door leading to the Speaker's lobby, that's right outside the chamber, U.S. Capitol Police Lieutenant Michael Byrd fired one shot, killing her. Quite a hero, actually. Though Boyd was cleared of any wrongdoing by the Justice Department and Capitol Police, Babbitt's death has remained a right-wing rallying cry that has cast her as a martyr. What the F and F was she doing there? Hero stuff. After reviewing the circumstances of Babbitt's death, the Air Force has offered military funeral honors to its SRAs. That's senior airmen. Is that what that is supposed to be? Babbitt's family. An Air Force spokesperson said, I'm not familiar with the shorthand of Air Force ranks, but, that's about all I can think of. Senior airman, the only thing that makes any sense. Okay, so now she was military, sure, but it's not just like military honors, like, okay, well, we'll, send 3 people from the Air Force to go and do an honor guard thing and fold up a flag. I mean, that shouldn't be happening, but that's not the worst thing in the world, but there's more. After reviewing the circumstances of Senior Airman Babbitt's death, right, we're going to give her the funeral honors. The conservative legal group Judicial Watch had long been pushing for Babbitt to receive full military honors and pushed the narrative that she was a victim of government misconduct. Ashli Babbitt's patriotic and courageous service in the U.S. Air Force and Air National Guard, and maybe it was, also merits favorable action on this request. The group wrote in a post Wednesday morning announcing the Air Force's decision. This is interesting. I'm going to pause for a second because there's a link to their statement. What an interesting selection to quote. I'm sure there's more in there because, after all, the word also does a lot of lifting here. Ashli Babbitt's patriotic and courageous service in the U.S. Air Force and Air National Guard. And there are still some people, despite the fact that she was shot rioting, trying to sack the Capitol and attack members of Congress, still people willing to say, well, in a previous life, we thank her for her service to the U.S. Air Force. Maybe, maybe not. I mean, in general, perhaps, but we don't know. Maybe her service sucked. No one checked. I don't know. You don't know. Anyway, what's interesting, though, is the way this is now phrased. So they're saying, this is Judicial Watch, Babbitt's service also merits favorable action on this request. Also, meaning alongside what? The rioting? And I wonder, now I want to go and take a look at this post that they're looking at, because I wouldn't be terribly surprised. Judicial Watch is that kind of place. And if they are, and they said what I think they might have said, NBC News should note that. Like, if they're sitting there saying she should be given full military honors because she participated in the January 6th riot. I mean, we're at that stage now where Republicans are praising it as a patriotic action. Oh, and also she served in the armed forces. Like, that could really be it. I don't know. Let's see. What's their thing say? Just curious. We'll read it and head out to the break and then regroup, come back, see if there's any more. Oh, there is definitely more information in this article. But their post, Judicial Watch announced today the U.S. Air Force will finally provide full military funeral honors to Ashli Babbitt. You know who she is and why. The Biden administration had previously denied Babbitt and her family these honors in retaliation, for being at the U.S. Capitol that day. Well, a little bit more than just being at the U.S. Capitol that day. The decision comes on the heels of a massive, nearly $5 million Trump administration settlement to her family for wrongful death and other claims against the U.S. government. Babbitt owned and operated a successful pool business with her husband, Aaron. So, think about all the poor pool owners who probably deserve compensation as well. Ashli traveled alone from San Diego to Washington to attend the Women for America First rally, whatever the hell that was supposed to be. That was actually the group that was granted the permit on the ellipse for holding this thing. I'm curious about whether there's anything else in there that explains the also, but this is now a very long release. They're going to be very long-winded about it. I'll take a break for 2 minutes, look for any important nuggets in there, and then when I get back, we'll just quickly wrap this story up and tell you further outrage about this stupid thing. You won't believe the lengths to which the Air Force is now going to go for this idiot. Or you might.
Hi, I'm Scott Anderson, the guy that writes the daily summary for this show, Kagro in the Morning. Thank you to everyone that supports this show. Many of you send donations through PayPal, Patreon, Square Cash, Radio Public, and so on. Some of you write your own essays and send them in, or read articles with your own commentary. We appreciate it. Now, some of you are listening to this and thinking, I'd like to help, but isn't there something I could do that wouldn't require money or effort? Why, yes, there is. You can just like us. On Daily Kos, they call it the recommend button. YouTube has a thumbs up. There are hearts and likes and love buttons. Tap our love button. Tap our love button every day. Share our shows and summaries on Facebook and Twitter, YouTube and iTunes, Stitcher and Amazon. Most of these places allow you to write a review, so a sentence or two would be great. Recommend us to social media, or tell your friends to listen to the show. You aren't just helping us, you're helping them find their new favorite thing to listen to. You could change the world. So thank you in advance from me and everybody else in the world.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. So I've skimmed over the Judicial Watch release, and Judicial Watch, you should be aware, is an ultra right-wing organization, and it was fairly likely that their formulation of events was going to be absolutely disgusting, and it was. By the way, also very disgusting. I clicked onto their page, which I was sad enough to do, but that's where this press release is going to live. And the pop-up comes up and says, "This is interesting. This is Judicial Watch, mind you." And anyway, so up pops privacy information. We and our partners are using tracking technologies to process personal data in order to improve our experience. That whole thing. And it's one of those, check this here, and you get a chance to click either on the button like "Don't sell my personal information," or to waive that and just click OK. What's interesting is they have a toggle switch for "Do not sell or share my personal information." It is preset to off, which I guess if you then click the OK button next to it means you're giving them your permission to sell or share whatever personal information they may be gleaning from your visit. If you toggle the switch and then click the OK button, it doesn't say, all right, that's your answer, and get the box out of your way and let you read the story. It flips the switch back to off and basically says, yeah, try again. So that's really interesting. And I'm sure the whole idea is, well, why not do it that way? And what's somebody going to do? Sue us about it? We're Judicial Watch. We'll sue them right back. And, you can probably get away with it with Trump's Federal Trade Commission is not going to ding Judicial Watch for anything. So that's the reality. Well, we're complying with the legal requirement to provide opt-out. We're just saying nothing will work if you opt out. Well, leave it to them. Those are the kind of disgusting people who would put this in. And now, so as it turns out, I guess to save you a little bit of time, although, I don't know, it's kind of illustrative to read how they view January 6th and Ashli Babbitt's death. What's happening here, the long story short, is the other also is, one, we portray her as an innocent victim in all of this, and the big bad government, which, tyranny and stuff, which we're fine with now, but back then was tyranny, and we hated, killed her, and all of that is obviously bad. And also she's in the military, so we think she should get a military funeral. So they don't really come out and say that she warrants this military funeral because she was sacking the Capitol. But they're like, basically, well, she should be by default eligible for this kind of funeral. But also, the world conspired against her. I mean, there's really no relevance to that. You say, yeah, what can I tell you? She was super down and out. But that doesn't mean you get what you're asking for. Military funeral is a privilege. I mean, it should go to people who served, but also it should probably go first to people who served and then never rebelled against the authority of the United States. I don't know. Anyway, this is their formulation, by the way, of what happened on January 6th, or their view of things. Now, I respectfully encourage the Department of Defense, this whoever their lawyer is, to consider two major recent developments and also Ashli's lengthy and meritorious military service, which is what's supposed to be considered for this thing. First, on January 20th, 2025, President Trump granted clemency for certain offenses relating to the events at or near the United States Capitol on January 6, 2021. The presidential proclamation states, this proclamation, or it's in Trump's voice, I guess, this proclamation ends a grave national injustice that has been perpetrated on the American people over the last 4 years and begins a process of national reconciliation. President Trump, A, commuted the sentences of certain individuals convicted of offenses related to the events that occurred at or near the Capitol on January 6th, and B, granted a full, complete, and unconditional pardon to all other individuals convicted of similar offenses. Okay, that did happen. She was one of them. None of them are getting military funerals. Why is she? Well, she's military. Well, then just get to the point. Second, on July 2nd, 2025, the United States of America paid a damage award of nearly $5 million to settle a wrongful death lawsuit that Judicial Watch and I, whoever this attorney is, brought forward on behalf of the estate of Ashli Babbitt and her husband, Aaron Babbitt, to ensure justice and accountability for the fatal shooting. They, of course, took a big cut of that, no doubt. But again, one, the thing was rigged. I mean, I think we can use that word appropriately. And two, so what? Again, nothing that tells us why this woman merits military funeral honors. But it goes on to say, many well-documented facts now clearly show that the fatal shooting was not justified. They don't. Their version of things, for example, Ashli was the only official homicide on January 6, 2021. So what? Ashli, age 35, was unarmed when she was fatally shot. She stood 5'3" tall and weighed 115 pounds. Her hands were up in the air, empty and in plain view of Lieutenant Byrd and 4 armed officers behind him. 7 additional armed officers were behind Ashli, including 4 containment and emergency response team officers. So what? Ashli posed no threat to the safety or of any officer or any members of Congress who stayed after member evacuation. What are you effing talking about? Of course she did. She smashed through the door to get there. What do you think she posed? Was she there to hand out daisies? Officers ignored Ashli. I don't know what that's... Oh, it says Ashli was allegedly begging officers to call for backup before she was shot. No, I think not. Officers ignored her. The only shot fired that day was the one Lieutenant Byrd fired to kill Ashli. One shot. Lieutenant Byrd was not in uniform. Oh, is this a problem? Lieutenant Byrd did not identify himself as a police officer or otherwise make his presence known to Ashli. It seems like that's actually all the rage right now. Was Lieutenant Byrd wearing a mask over his face when he did it? Was he wearing street clothes? Was he jumping out of an unmarked car to do it? I hope that's not bothering you. Lieutenant Byrd did not give Ashli any warnings or commands before firing the shot that killed her. The locked door and the window frame was really supposed to provide that warning, but apparently it was all lost on Ashli. There's more. Oh, she never saw him. She was ambushed and defenseless and boo-hoo. And then they come back and say, by the way, Ashli's patriotic and courageous service in the U.S. Air Force and Air National Guard also merits favorable action on this request. As if all the aforementioned lies about and spin about how January 6th went down for Ashli Babbitt actually contributed to it. They actually merit even more favorable action on this request. It's really rather remarkable. Okay, there's more complaining and arguing and God knows what. Is there a name attached to this? There's this first person answer responses to all this, but nowhere does anybody put their name to it. But I don't know. It doesn't really matter. There's more in the NBC article. Babbitt was a prolific social media user who embraced conspiracy theories. She believed in Pizzagate. You know what that is. Babbitt's estate filed the wrongful death. So, you know what? They don't even say it in this. This is incredible. Has that been rescinded? Or maybe let me go to the Hill's coverage of this. It would be hard to believe that only the Hill found this to be relevant to the story. I apologize. I would have thought that NBC News would have included it, which again, I guess tells us a little something about the editorial choices maybe being made, unless there was a correction that they don't note here. Here's the Hill version of it by Ella Lee, Air Force to provide funeral honors to Ashli Babbitt. Let me skim and see where we are. By the way, the granting of her family's request here comes from a letter made public from Undersecretary of the Air Force Matthew Lohmeier, Lohmeier, in case you want to note that for later on for some reason, extending an offer to allow the special funeral procedures to take place. He recounts the process through which they negotiated this. And let's see, there is this one here. He additionally extended an invitation to her mother and husband to meet him at the Pentagon so he may offer his condolences. That's of some interest, I think, there. The Hill requested comment from the Pentagon regarding the veracity of the letter, and it seems to me like things have been changed a little bit. Let me keep skimming, but I remember reading this one yesterday and saying that like the Air Force could not be reached for comment. The Air Force could not be reached? Where was it? I thought that was kind of an interesting formulation, but I don't see that one here now. Now they recount what happened, why she was there, January 6th, what she did. A month after the riot, an Air Force representative from under former President Biden's administration informed her family that military funeral honors were denied for her funeral, quote, due to the circumstances preceding her death, unquote. As a result, I have determined that military funeral honors would bring discredit upon the Air Force. Brian Kelly, an actual Air Force Lieutenant General, wrote in the original letter about this question. An eligible veteran's honor guard detail consists of at least 2 members of the armed forces, one of whom is a representative of the Veterans Service Branch, according to the Department of Veterans Affairs. It includes a ceremony including the playing of taps and the folding and presentation of the American flag to the next of kin. Ashli Babbitt's family is grateful to President Trump, Secretary Hegseth, and Undersecretary Lohmeier for reversing the Biden Defense Department's cruel decision to deny Ashli funeral honors as a distinguished veteran of the Air Force, Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton said in a statement. So I guess that was, I had to figure that was him. He's usually a pretty self-aggrandizing guy. And by the way, also, I think, if I recall correctly, not an attorney, but, head of Judicial Watch, whatever. I guess you don't have to be in order to be a spokesperson, basically. But an avid weightlifter. So, there you go. In May, the government, look at this. Is there no mention of this? anywhere. I got to go look back because it's interesting. This is gone from the most egregious part, I thought, is now gone from both reports. And I wonder whether that was corrected, removed. I want to go look at the provenance of this thing reaching me because I'm pretty sure I reposted it. There it is. Yeah. Yeah. And now my response to it makes no sense. But as I saw this yesterday, and yeah, you know what? Now I'm not 100% certain. Did I read? I'm pretty sure I read the article just to be sure that this was the case. But maybe now the poster who attached the Hill article derived that from some other source, maybe not even legitimate. All right, well, it's ridiculous and stupid waste of time and a dishonor and a discredit to the Air Force, regardless of what's going on. But originally, the poster who I saw missing the point, and maybe they were missing the point, maybe I'm missing the point of them missing the point, maybe it's ironic, had posted this with the note appended, in honor of Ashli Babbitt. During her funeral, the U.S. Air Force will strafe the U.S. Capitol. Yeah, and I took that to mean that they were going to actually do some sort of a flyover. And I was like, yeah, I don't think strafe is the term you want, but maybe that was it. Maybe that was the joke. Okay, I see what was going on here. And I thought they were going to do one of those, missing man formation flyovers. And it's a pretty good chance that they'll just open fire and shoot up the dome. But I guess that's actually the joke there. I must have missed the point of missing the points post. All right. Still, yeah, that's a little silly. But at any rate, just the fact that she's having a military honors funeral plus the $5 million settlement is pretty amazing all by itself. All right. Well, I wouldn't be surprised now if when in doing a 21 gun salute, they start firing at nearby police officers as well. Maybe even into the crowd. Who knows? Okay, let's see. Well, now we can catch up on a couple other things. I just found the whole thing, Ashli Babbitt's story in general, to be rather ridiculous. Then, where's this thing from? This is a piece of info gleaned from a long Atlantic piece, which I don't think we'll have time to read today, but I happened to notice David Graham posting this on social media yesterday. Blue Sky, basically. When I say social media, I just generally speaking, I'm not checking Twitter anymore. Not that people don't take screenshots and send them over to us on Blue Sky, but David Graham, you may also be following, journalist at The Atlantic as well, who grabs from someone else's story here. It sounds like a very interesting story, as a matter of fact. It's called Fast Times at Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Nick Miroff is the author of the piece. Flush with cash and soaring with hubris, Trump appointees are supersizing ICE. And you had to figure that they were, in fact, doing that. And the one grab that David makes from out of this and appends the comment, absolutely bonkers personalist regime stuff. One of the themes of the story, when they say fast times, is they've obviously accelerated both increased their hiring, but accelerated their training program so that they can get more agents supposedly trained and out on the street more quickly. And he points out there's a paragraph in here that says new deportation officers at ICE used to receive about 5 months of federal law enforcement training. Administration officials have cut that time roughly in half, partly by eliminating Spanish language courses. That might be important. And then the highlighted part here for David is academy training was shortened to 47 days, 3 officials told me. The number picked because Trump, is the 47th president. Isn't that something? Now, DHS officials said training will run 6 days a week for 8 weeks, and I guess then a graduation day at the end. Training, 47 days, because 47. That's really happening in America. As he says, absolutely bonkers, personalist regime stuff. The article seems really fascinating, but is really long. But to give you a taste of what's going on here, maybe a nice florid introduction. Again, writing credit for this one to Nick Miroff. In a video produced by the Department of Homeland Security this month, 2 tricked-out ICE vehicles, we heard about this one, roll around on the National Mall to Toes by rapper DaBaby. I got no idea what's going on here. My heart so... I'm going to be reading rap lyrics out in my white voice with no idea of the cadence of it either. This is great. My heart so cold, I think I'm done with ice. Burr. Like Burr. Said if I leave her, she gon' die. Well, you done with life. Well, that makes no sense to me, as there's no rhythm or cadence to it that I can add to it that will help make this make any sense. But the idea is, of course, they're trying to be young and, can you say hip without making it sound like, you mean hip like you fell and broke your hip? Is that what you mean? No. I don't know. The vehicles featured a new ICE logo in this video and defend the homeland in block letters painted in a color scheme similar to the president's private plane. The Lincoln Memorial zips by. It's actually relative to what's happening here. It's the cars that are zipping by. And DaBaby continues, better not pull up with no knife, 'cause I bring guns to fights. There's the White House, the Washington Monument, the U.S. Capitol. On a tinted glass of the pickup, President Donald J. Trump is stenciled in all caps like a production credit. What I look like with all this money, DaBaby asks, more of a taunt than a question. The 29-second spot shared on social media earlier this month with the caption, iced out, and a freezing face emoji, treats ICE's new taxpayer-funded fleet like flashy bling. But it's a proclamation that the president's mass deportation campaign is entering a swaggering new phase. For many longtime immigration and customs enforcement officials and agency veterans, the video epitomizes the transformation of ICE from an agency focused on legalistic immigration procedures into a political instrument and propaganda tool. That's the whole point. How it happens and how egregious it is the subject of the rest of this piece, which probably would take us about half an hour or more to get through, but which I recommend to you to look at over the weekend. And I think we've got a gift link to the article waiting in the wings for you to share with you. Speaking of stupid things that different branches of the military are doing, which is what I was speaking of in the prior thing when I missed the point of missing the points post. Oh, that's bad. Anyway, the fire hose of information is just running that heavy all the time. All right, at least we caught it finally and figured out what was going on. Anyway, you think the Air Force sucks? Holy mackerel, have I got news for you. Well, two or three things going on with the Army in the last couple of days. One, I don't know if I put it away somewhere, but I saw at the end, right after the end of yesterday's show, just, this means nothing whatsoever, I guess, but apparently it was previously the case that if you went to an Army West Point, Army Military Academy football game, not just the Army-Navy game, but the whole season. If you went to a football game at Army, right, they don't sell alcohol in the stands, which, at an American football game is sacrilegious and how dare you and something Army. But remember, of course, they probably shouldn't be doing it anywhere. College football games, 3/4 of the student body, obviously, usually, and maybe more, ineligible, right? You shouldn't be buying alcohol. They're bringing their own alcohol. Kids today, and every day, always, fine. But, lots of adults go too. And I guess for some reason they can't resist drinking alcohol around the kids who are also illegally drinking alcohol. But at the Army, you're like, well, fine, upstanding young folks who have shaved their heads for America in a good way. Let's not have the booze. Just watch the damn football game. What do you need to drink? What are you, some kind of an alcoholic who can't make it through a morning football game without beer? Oh, wait a minute. Who's the Secretary of the Army? Well, anyway, the news is, guess what, kids? Pete Hegseth has changed the rules, and now the United States Military Academy will be selling alcohol at home football games. Hooray! Drunk officers, or cadets anyway. What a shining example for America and the world. So there's that news. And then there's, also news that while he got, I guess, alcohol in the morning, somebody had the theory that, what was it? I don't think I watched this show, but that maybe Hegseth, Hegseth can only transport himself. He can only travel to places where there's alcohol available, like somebody in, his TV series Jumpers or something like that. You can only go. I can see that being a plot point in a science fiction show. There it is. Arcadis, who writes, Pete Hegseth can only travel to locations where alcohol is served. It's like the guy from Jumper having to see the place before he can jump to it. Maybe that's it. That's pretty good. And by the way, let's see. Oh, good commentary along the way. How do we say your name out loud, fellow listener? The username, B, Zegiel. Is that, do I have him right? Is B like your first initial and Zegiel your last name? Oh man, I'm sorry. I don't know. There's no pronunciation guide, but thank you for listening and commenting. This is just what I was looking for. Listening to David reading rap lyrics is just chef's kiss. It's not. It's terrible. I'm sure. Oh my God. I mean, I can just hear in my head how, well, as I'm reading the lyrics and I'm like, I can't even figure out the scheme. It has to be delivered the way the artist delivers it for it to make any sense. And the whole point of the genre is to deliver the words in this way that helps it make sense. And I've never heard it. I don't know the baby. And I'm sure, I'm not even sure if I'm saying the guy's name right. And it's not because it's difficult to figure out what the components of it, but who knows where the emphasis lies. There's probably a whole point to it, and I'm missing. Oh God, it's Chef's Kiss. Oh, I guess you're right. In disaster form. Okay. Well, thank you for your comment. I appreciate that. It's good / bad to know that there were people listening to me do that. But okay. Where were we? Oh, right. The Army was doing other terrible things. Right. Pete Hegseth had something to drink at the game, I guess. Or he was probably ready to do this before he had anything to drink. They are restoring to a place of prominence in the West Point library. A previously removed by congressional direction, essentially. Previously removed portrait of Robert E. Lee. Which, frankly, there's no way to do a portrait of Robert E. Lee and put it in there and be like, yeah, this is cool. But I'm sure for years they were, well, he's a West Point graduate. He is. But, like if Ted Kaczynski was, wouldn't you really take down his portrait? But in addition, it's additionally insulting because there's a whole history to this particular portrait. It was commissioned during a very, rough period of, it wasn't contemporaneous or anything. First of all, I saw this today. I didn't know anything about the history of this thing, but apparently the controversial part of it is that in the background there is a slave holding Lee's horse's reins. So I guess it's not in the foreground. It's not a mounted portrait. It's in the background. So they throw that in like P.S. Twist the knife, slavery. This is a portrait apparently commissioned in the 1940s, like immediately following President Truman's desegregation of the armed forces. So there was a real background to it. And to choose this portrait and to put any... So you see what's going on in the Army. All right. Well, I'm getting laughing, crying emojis from our correspondent, but no instructions about how to pronounce the name. But thank you for putting up with us. Yeah, for the rest of the show, it's just me reading rap lyrics. What a disaster that would be. There would be no rap, no hip-hop genre whatsoever. If you just let me do the vocals, I could destroy the whole genre for it. But it's probably true of country music as well. Anyway, I could write them, my truck. Oh, no. There you go. A country hit. Used to be about maybe your dogs and your girlfriend as well. But now it's mostly truck stuff. All right, so what else is the Army up to that absolutely sucks? And the answer is, I don't know which tab has this thing anymore, and I got to look around. But the Army is up to no good in something. But now the Navy also is up to no good. There we are. That's what I was looking for. Why does the Army suck? Who says the Army sucks? Not me. I love the Army. But Donald Trump, who of course thinks everybody in the armed forces are suckers and losers, thinks the Army sucks. Why does the Army suck? The Army sucks because they didn't do a good enough job on his vanity parade back in, what was it, in July for his birthday. So now he's mad at them for that. Why so? Well, I don't know. But it was a kind of a lame parade as it happened. But, they told him about history, and he hates that. So what's the answer to this? The answer is make somebody else do a parade for me. Army parade disappointed Trump, and that's in scare quotes, disappointed Trump. So Navy will do one too, reports apparently for New York Magazine. Margaret Hartman, I can't tell you for sure because the firewall's getting in the way of that one. But I can tell you what the article says, although we might misread part of it because some of the formatting is gone. Members of the U.S. This is the caption showing the parade. Members of the U.S. Army participate in the 250th birthday parade on June 14th, 2025 in Washington, D.C. And no word yet. I haven't read this article yet. I don't know whether they're going to be pretending that the parade is to honor the anniversary of the founding of the Navy or anything like that. But remember that the part that Trump really wanted there was to have tanks rolling down the street. I don't know what's going to roll down the street for the Navy parade. They could bring duck boats, I guess. They have those on the streets of D.C. anyway. Donald Trump fulfilled his years-long dream of holding a military parade in Washington, D.C. this past June. Sorry, got the month wrong. Miraculously, both the president and his opponents mostly got what they wanted out of the event, which is miraculous to see Trump actually bring something to fruition. Although I guess he was disappointed in it, so there you go. Trump got to see lots and lots of tanks at a big fireworks show for his birthday, which just happened to coincide with the Army's 250th anniversary. Trump's critics got to say they overshadowed the event by holding no King's Day protests nationwide, but not in D.C. An estimated 4 to 6 million people turned out, making it one of the largest days of protest in U.S. history. That's true. But within weeks, Trump had channeled his passion for dictatorial displays into constructing a White House ballroom and more other stupid things I'll tell you about after this. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. How'd you like my rap? That was pretty good, right? Oh, boy, that's embarrassing. All right, well, I was in the middle of telling you about the possibility of a Navy parade to make up for Trump's, ordered to make up for Trump's lack of excitement about what the Army gave him. I thought that was rather amazing. But we were just reading how it says here, within weeks, Trump had afterwards channeled his passion for dictatorial displays into constructing a White House ballroom. By the way, that apparently, it's still alleged to be going forward, though. I don't think we read about it on the air, but we commented that it might, in fact, be the case. Once again, all the paperwork is missing on all of this. Like, normally, you have to go through, I imagine, innumerable bureaucratic stops to construct, to like double the size of the White House. And to do any construction at the White House probably requires an awful lot of red tape and paperwork. But because he's a businessman, he's cutting through all of it and going to be constructing. And I don't think it matters. He's just going to order it to go ahead, and then people will sue and they'll win the suit. And then they'll be like, well, what do you wanted us to do? Dynamite the ballroom? Yes, but well, now it's done. What are we going to do? And we'll be stuck with this thing. That's a whole other story. That's not what this one is about. But that's part of where he channeled his passion for dictatorial displays after his disappointment in the Army's parade. So it seemed, though, like his craving for a military parade had been satisfied, but apparently that's not the case. Buried in a long Wall Street Journal piece on Trump's largely unchecked authoritarianism, Have we read that one? I don't know. Is the news that Trump was, quote, disappointed by his first parade. So now the U.S. Navy is looking to throw him an even bigger one this fall. I was going to say throw him overboard into the ocean with Osama bin Laden, but that's not their plan. May happen. It's just not their plan. I want to take a look at the Wall Street Journal piece, by the way. Have I seen this one? In Trump's second term, a bolder president charges ahead unchecked. More bad spin. This is an August 27th piece. Josh Dawsey and Annie Linsky are the authors, and Josh Dawsey, I have to imagine, I think, if I'm thinking of the right guy, would be maybe a little bit disappointed in the way the headline came out on that one. Trump is frequently riffing on authoritarianism and ignoring caution from advisors. Can't read the piece. I guess I could stuff it into Instapaper and try to read it that way, but we got other things in mind for the moment. I'll keep it open and send you the tab. You can find it, of course, linked in this story. But one more link couldn't hurt. Scott will probably appreciate it, I think, more so than anyone's appreciated my rap lyric recitations. Donald Trump. Where do we leave off here? Oh yes, we read this part here. So the Navy is going to do something. And now there's a quote, and I guess this is from the Wall Street Journal piece. Trump has also pushed the optics of the presidency in a monarchical direction, holding a military parade in June for the Army's 250th birthday. Officials had thwarted a similar one in his first term by arguing it would look like a third world spectacle. But of course, that being the aim for the second term, I guess they jumped out of the way of that one. After the Washington parade, Trump told aides he was disappointed with the marching, and the U.S. Navy is trying to plan a bigger celebration this fall, hoping for a shimmering spectacle with Seacraft, administration officials said. Seacraft. Well, I'm not certain how that works out or what they're talking about. And is there a good reason? Like a good cover reason for that this fall? Is the Navy 250th anniversary coming up, or are they just like, go Navy, beat Army? I don't understand what's prompting this. The U.S. Navy hasn't announced anything about this, so there's, a small logistics problem. It is August 29th. Labor Day is Monday. The Navy is supposed to put on this giant spectacle this fall. Who's planning it? How are they getting these boats onto the street? Where are the boats? Where's the aircraft carriers? Steam. We got to have steam catapults. No idea. The U.S. Navy has not announced a thing about it. 2 weeks before the Army parade, USA Today reported that two of the other military branches were not planning big parades, though they also have big birthdays this year. The USA Today report apparently says, meanwhile, the Navy, which also, there we are, celebrates its 250th anniversary in October. That's the excuse. I figured it had to be the case. I don't know why Trump doesn't just come right out and say, but they're doing it because I'm ordering it. Anyway, they have no plans for a similar parade, and that may be true. They may yet do the parade, but how they're going to do a good job of it, I don't know. The Marine Corps, too, has its 250th in November and does not appear to have a parade on tap either. The Journal report suggests Trump's main issue wasn't with the military vehicles, but the soldiers' marching abilities. Bone Spurs has problems with the soldiers' marching abilities. By the way, he drives a handicapped golf cart at his own courses and drives it right up onto the green. And he's got giant cankles and he can't navigate stairs, but he has problems with the soldiers' marching abilities. The uniformed soldiers marched irregularly, slightly off beat. The turnout was small. That's not the Army's fault. And the crowd seemed defeated, low energy, and a bit wilted and unenthused after spending hours in D.C.'s brutal summer humidity, Moira Donegan noted in The Guardian at the time. And then what is this? Is this a embedded tweet, perhaps? Okay, well, we can skip that. Oh, well, actually, it was interesting, I guess. I really thought Trump's police state parade would look fascist and scary. Instead, it's just humiliating. Are the soldiers marching like this as a low-key F-U? He says, use the real word. F-U to Trump. Compare it to any other military parade, and you'll see what I mean. Says, I don't know, a guy. I don't know, Kyle Kalinske. who has a show and everything. Got it? Hopefully, Navy sailors are already rehearsing, as it seems like Trump is going to make the military branches keep doing these parades until one of them gets it right. Well, there you have it. I don't know. I haven't heard that much discussed anywhere, but let's see. We said the Air Force is disgracing us with Ashli Babbitt's thing. The Navy's going to do a parade, which is a disgrace. The Army already did the parade, which was a disgrace. Plus, they're hanging Robert E. Lee's picture and the beer sales, which, I'm not so worried about that one. But the Marine Corps hasn't yet done anything today, which is particularly disgraceful. The Coast Guard, well, they're doing okay. No disgraces from the and Space Force. Coast Guard, Space Force, and Marine Corps, so far so good, but the day is young. All right, other things that I need to share with you. I'm going to jump back up to the top and work down. Well, we're on a military theme. This is an interesting piece. I guess I'm not too worried about the actual subject of this story, but there were some interesting aspects to the story that I thought, hey, why not comment on this one? Maybe we'll hear more about this. Oh, yeah. In the days to come. I don't think so. It's not super important, I know, so why include it? It's just good, interesting, additional background information for the effing mess that is everything. Who's reporting this? TheCut.com. I don't know, but they seem legit. E.J. Dixon, who likewise seems legit, senior writer at The Cut, covering culture. Give you an idea where we are, but this involves armed forces again. The Army, I think. Although, please, let it be a Marine Corps, Space Force, or Coast Guard, if I can get that in there. An astrologer's, what? Astrology? An astrologer's messy affair with a Trump Pentagon official, who should really not be a Trump Pentagon official, but is, because reasons. Amy Tripp, related to Linda? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Who cares? Advertises herself as, ready? The internet's most notorious astrologer. Is that hard to be? I don't know. Is it verifiable? No, of course not. Why are we talking about astrologers? Astrologers, whatever, they get involved in things and they do something. We're told you it's a messy affair with the Trump Pentagon official. The weird part is you later on find out that they have an affair because this Pentagon official, who at the time was an Army officer, is like, hey, you know what? I'm into astrology. Oh, no. Why? Oh, God help us. Amy Tripp advertises herself as the internet's most notorious astrologer under the professional name Starheel. All one word, like Heal. Like maybe why is she not having an affair with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who's really the focus of all of our healing problems these days? That I don't know. Under the professional name Starheel, she offers her followers wisdom such as, quote, moon opposite Chiron at 3:04 p.m. Eastern Time exposes where old wounds meet current vulnerabilities. Something may trigger emotional pain. Okay, sure, whatever. She's perhaps best known for correctly predicting, this is interesting, the exact date when Joe Biden would drop out of the presidential race. I didn't realize that anybody had made such a prediction using astrology, but maybe it was using something else. By the way, I'm going to just click over to that. That's from Rolling Stone. This political astrologer, she's a political astrologer, has some bad news for Trump. I wish it was, but I guess it must have seemed like bad news for Trump at the time. This is from July 24th, 2025. Okay. Well, that wasn't the bad news. I guess there's some more bad news. But it notes in the subheader that Amy Tripp correctly predicted when Joe Biden would drop out of the race, and she said there's some significant days coming up for the current president. And now I'm thrilled to find out what those might be, except I don't know if I can look at this. I think fairly obviously plastic surgery, altered face in here. So anyway, but in August of 2020, Amy Tripp, an astrologer who goes by Starheel, tweeted to her tens of thousands of Twitter followers that Kamala Harris would be running for president in 2024 because of the politician's Saturn return. This is in August of 2020. I guess it wouldn't be hard to predict that she would be running for president, but I'm kind of curious about when did she make the prediction that he was going to drop out? Because if it was like 2 days before, I don't know if I really credit that to astrology per se. Anyway, it's a Rolling Stone piece. It's protected by a firewall, and it's not the reason we're here. So I'm going to jump back to the story from the cut. So, okay, you can see we're working in some weird places here. Anyway, so she apparently correctly predicted this dropping out of the race. Now court documents show she's been embroiled in a legal battle with an official in Trump's Defense Department with whom she allegedly had a 15-month-long affair. I guess dramatic music for that. I mean, ultimately, at this stage of the game, we're not really supposed to care that much about it, except, a Pentagon official, that probably means subject to blackmail. But in this administration, at this point, who cares? The president is subject to the same blackmail. I don't know whether there's anything that can be gleaned from compromising this Pentagon official that isn't already being shared on Signal. But you're not supposed to do this stuff. But not supposed to is, not a standard anymore. Okay, so on August 22nd, a John Doe, didn't want to share his name, but it's to no effect because I don't know who the cut is, but again, this is like a culture and style magazine, and they got the goods. They know who John Doe is, so it's not helping anybody. But it was filed as a John Doe thing, filed a lawsuit against Tripp in Palm Beach County, Florida. Why are all of these effing weirdo perverts in Palm Beach? Get rid of, you're going to saw off Florida like Bugs Bunny. Saw off Palm Beach. You can just do just Palm Beach. You can keep West Palm. That's fine. Just east of the Intracoastal, set it adrift. That's where Pervalago is. And as a result, I know there's still probably some of you who question, why does he always say Pervalago? What evidence is there really that it's full of perverts and it's a sex club and a dungeon rather than just a place where old people go to sit on the beach? And the answer is every effing thing in the world that goes on in Palm Beach, always. So, okay, what else is happening in Palm Beach? Palm Beach is tiny. How do we have this ex-army official who's now at the Pentagon in a civilian capacity having an affair with astrologers? It's all in Palm Beach. It's all in Palm Beach. I don't know why. Palm Beach, the whole thing. You're all under arrest under my administration. Since there's no law anymore to protect you or due process, that's the way it's going to go. Sorry. So, all right, there it is. The John Doe suit filed in Palm Beach, Florida, of course, accusing, though, Tripp of harassment, bullying, and defamation, which likely means that she probably thinks she was harassed, bullied, and defamed by the other guy. In the 17-page suit, Doe claims he and Tripp met on Bumble in April of 2024 while he was in the process of writing a book and was consulting regarding astrological beliefs and related issues, unquote. That's an army guy being conscious of it, making him look somehow weird or unmanly by actually being interested in astrology himself. Okay, whatever. No further comment on it. The lawsuit frames the relationship between Doe and Tripp as a, quote, casual sexual relationship. No big deal for people except, family values, yada, yada. Casual sexual relationship as well as a professional relationship regarding the astrology business. Why? Doe, who's described as a recently confirmed Defense Department official, and hardly anybody's been confirmed to their appointments, so it's already an easy dig, but a recently confirmed Defense Department official and retired from the military, says that he developed an interest in astrology and invested in Tripp's company, Star Heel LLC, in exchange for 5% equity. So it's an unusual investment, to say the least, and Palm Beach and Army and astrology. There's a lot of weird things going on here. In June of 2025, that's just a couple months ago, according to this lawsuit, Tripp informed Doe, we don't know who he is, that the astrological signs told her that John Doe's confirmation to his position in the Department of Defense was imminent. Now, you don't really have to consult an astrologer for that, but okay. Doe claims that owing to his impending confirmation, this is nice of him, he broke up with Tripp via text, saying he intended to reconcile with his wife. She advises him, guess what? The stars are aligned. You're going to get confirmed. He says, oh, well, if I'm going to get confirmed, I got to get rid of you, because if they find out that I'm effing you on the side, then I either won't get confirmed or it'll become a scandal, or, to which she should have said, Saturn is up Uranus, and I have to tell you that no one is going to get in trouble in this administration for having affairs on the side. That's an old thing that doesn't happen in this administration anymore. The affairs do, but getting in trouble or being embarrassed about it is out. Don't worry about it. Now, okay, fine. But he says, just for safety's sake, we're breaking up, and I'm doing this via text. From there, the suit alleges, Tripp began lashing out and publicly posting false information about John Doe and his wife, which I understand to be probably, I'm guessing, probably is true information, but made him mad or worried, so he's going to say it's false information. Repeatedly calling them as well and threatening them with violence. Maybe. I'm not sure. The alleged harassment prompted Doe to file for a temporary restraining order. Palm Beach County court records, unfortunately for Mr. Doe, show that one Anthony Tata, is it Tata? Tata? T-A-T-A is his last name. Familiar, by the way, but I don't know how to pronounce the last name aloud. But Anthony Tata, what should we say about this one? He's profiled in the New York Times here. Trump nominates retired general known. We'll get to this. Okay. But I guess I could do a listen to this article and get his actual pronunciation if I had the time to do that. But I'm here to tell you a different story. So, all right. There's a small universe of people who are pending confirmation at the time to Pentagon jobs and who live in Palm Beach County and who have had to take out temporary restraining orders against their astrologers. And the answer is, it's this guy. The Cut figured that out. But the Doe filing, that'll help you. Okay, so not really understanding the world, but let's just put him in charge of military stuff. The alleged harassment prompted Doe to file for a TRO. Palm Beach County court records show that Anthony Tata, Tutu, whatever his name is, the current Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel and Readiness in the Trump administration, was in fact granted a temporary restraining order against Tripp. Now, it'll get to the other good stuff in a few paragraphs here. Reached for comment, the lawyers listed on John Doe's lawsuit, one of whom represents that same person, Tata, in the matter of the restraining order against Tripp. So there you have it. Said they would neither confirm nor deny that Doe is Tata, Tutu, TT. A representative for Tripp said that Ms. Tripp strenuously denies the allegations in the complaint and trusts that the process will fully vindicate her. Well, that's probably a misplaced trust. Tripp herself appeared to be vaguely reference the suit in a since-deleted tweet. And I don't know. The tweet reads, apparently, coercive controllers love to humiliate their victims and put them in double binds. Parentheses, orchestrated situations that no matter what they do, it's bad for them, on parens. She wrote on Thursday. They also make false allegations and always want to control the narrative to silence and discredit their victim. I can't tell which one of these two idiots is the worst villain here. Text messages cited in the lawsuit appear to show Tripp attempting to extort Doe for $25,000 in exchange for her silence about the affair. It's cute. She thinks that still matters. In one message, a person believed to be Tripp allegedly texted Doe's wife, threatening to file a police report falsely accusing Doe of an unspecified crime, writing, "He won't get confirmed. He's cooked." So she's trying to extort something. It seems interesting. By the way, good astrology. He won't get confirmed. He's cooked. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. He's confirmed, but maybe because you didn't speak out. I don't know. So it does sound like an extortion attempt. I don't know what the whole full backstory is. Probably neither one of these guys is worth, vindicating and all this. But let's keep following along here. I just told the White House, you want to be next? One purported text message to Doe's wife reads, "You have skeletons in your closet." I'd be interested to know, just out of curiosity, what the skeletons might be, or what does Tripp know about Doe's wife, and why even bother with the Doe anymore. The lawsuit mentions that Doe was confirmed by the Senate on July 15th. Well, Tatas, TT22s, was the only Department of Defense confirmation vote that took place that day. So come on already. The suit also specifies that John Doe is a resident of Palm Beach County, Florida. The U.S. Senate website lists Tata Tutu as a Florida resident. Could be anywhere. You never know. In addition, Doe is identified as a novelist in the suit, attributing his romantic interests in Tripp in part to her, quote, ability to advise him on a character in one of his novels. Tata, whatever, is the author of several action thrillers, including 3 Minutes to Midnight, Double Crossfire, and The Phalanx Code. Very interesting and exciting sounding. If you own any of these books, you are free to burn them. They belong to you. You can do whatever you want. Now you're all disappointed. Can you erase your brain? Can you bleach your brain and get those books out of your head? He is, it says, a former Army brigadier general who served in Afghanistan, Tata, whatever, served for 28 years before retiring in 2009. Upon his retirement, he became a school superintendent in Wake County, North Carolina. Interesting. Gaining a public profile as a political commentator and author. He was also North Carolina's transportation secretary, a post from which he resigned in 2015. So an accomplished career after the Army. Following his resignation, the Raleigh-based newspaper The News and Observer published an investigation claiming Tata had a history of adultery. I guess he does. And alleging he forged a court document during his time in the military. Well, he's in the right administration anyway. They love forging. I retired after 28 years honorably with the highest non-combat award the Chief of Staff of the Army can give, Tata said at the time. That's the only thing that's relevant here. Well, I mean, I don't know where here was, but I mean, forgery of a document in a court proceeding while you're in the military seems like it might also be relevant. But you did get an award, unless, of course, you forged the award, in which case that, too, is relevant here. I don't know why. That's interesting spin. Why am I in court in the military? And the only thing that's interesting here is I got a medal. Well, not if you're on trial for forgery. In 2020, President Trump nominated Tata Tutu, R2D2, whatever his name is, to serve in a top Pentagon position. Now, this is where it becomes interesting. Like, okay, yeah. So you mean he served in the first administration and the second administration? Because we just heard he was just confirmed in 2025. Is that what this means? No, apparently not. No. That's right. No. Something else happened. In 2020, Trump nominated Tata, and this is why it might be familiar sounding to you, to serve in a top Pentagon position. The White House withdrew his nomination. For what? Undersecretary of Defense for Policy. Different position. Undersecretary of Defense. Why did he withdraw? Why would the Trump White House withdraw anyone's nomination? Well, you see, it was after CNN reported on several of Tata's old Islamophobic tweets in which he promoted a conspiracy theory that the former president, Barack Obama, was a Muslim and referred to Islam as, quote, the most oppressive, violent religion I know of. During his most recent confirmation hearing, yes, this is his second time around with this, Tata apologized for the remarks, saying they were, quote, out of character, which is interesting because he's very interested in character development and apparently has this particular character flaw that led to the North Carolina papers saying this guy has a bit of an adultery problem, in which he said, what I need to do is relocate to Palm Beach, Florida, where adultery problems are not problems. Tripp, for her part, has continued to post through the breakup. Uranus is at the Venus-Saturn midpoint, she tweeted on Wednesday. Don't know what that's supposed to mean. A tense love relationship, the desire to suddenly overcome inhibitions or obstacles in love, a strong temporary infatuation, a quarrel between lovers, a sudden separation. I never know what anything is supposed to mean in these astrology posts, but I guess that's supposed to reference what's going on here. The big point I really kind of wanted to get around to in all of this is, in the first Trump administration, this guy was nominated to an undersecretary of defense position, and the Trump White House said, actually, this guy not at all suited to this position. We withdraw his nomination. Fast forward 5 years, and instead of being Undersecretary for Policy at the Defense Department, this guy is Undersecretary for some other damn thing at the Defense Department. It was listed in here somewhere, and now it's not immediately at hand, but wasn't he Undersecretary for Personnel and Readiness or something like that? It's interesting how you come to the decision, you can't be involved in the Pentagon as Undersecretary for Policy. You're Islamophobic. But you can, since you apologized, be Undersecretary for Readiness and Personnel Matters. Oh, but you're also a pervert of Palm Beach County? All right, well, welcome in. Hi, everybody. It's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and Patreon.com, Patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, Patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. I didn't mean to spend this much time necessarily on this thing, but, like everything, you chase something down a rabbit hole, and it turns out that everything's insane. And here's some more insanity. So, as I mentioned to you, there was a New York Times article detailing his previous problems in getting confirmed. And I did want to say one thing, by the way. It's interesting that he was nominated for a similar position in the first Trump administration, but then withdrawn because problems. But then second Trump administration comes around and they're like, F it, nothing matters. Nominate the guy to undersecretary again. He's still the Islamophobic weirdo he was last time, but this time no one's going to care. And in fact, they were right, and they pushed him through. What's interesting, though, also is, remember the whole astrology part of this thing, and there was, at the same time, the astrologer is advising him, hey, you're going to be confirmed, right? In June 2025, according to the lawsuit, the astrological signs told her that John Doe's confirmation to his position was imminent. Yet, at the same time, he's texting the guy's wife that he's not going to get confirmed and he's cooked. Because, of course, I assume because she was going to reveal the affair, but I guess she never got around to it or something because there was a temporary restraining order. Anyway, I'm just sort of wondering, what does that do to your reputation as an astrologer, as a prognosticator? Oh, he's not going to get confirmed. He's cooked. Days later, whoops, he's confirmed. It's like, maybe don't listen to this astrologer. She's not very good, but she's mixing politics with her astrology, and she's really wrong. But I guess that was her thing. And, I correctly predicted the date that Joe Biden was going to drop out of the race. But then I also predicted that you weren't going to be confirmed. And duh, you have been confirmed. So I don't know. There was that. But I was looking at the Piece from February of this year, Helene Cooper writing in the New York Times, Trump nominates retired general known for inflammatory remarks. And of course, it is about Anthony J. Tata, the retired brigadier general. And I noticed that they too offered a reading of the article. But again, it's an automated voice, so there's entertainment value in it, I guess. How does he pronounce his name? And then do I really believe this robot is going to get it right? You tell me. I'm going to have to play it off of my laptop and into the microphone here. So the sound quality won't be great, but maybe I can turn it up enough that it won't matter too much.
Trump nominates retired general known for inflammatory remarks. This article is by Helena Cooper and read by an automated voice.
Great.
President Trump has nominated Anthony J. Tata.
There you go. Do you think that's the real pronunciation? Anthony J. That one I hadn't tried. Tata. Tata. But Tata, I had not. Anthony, see you later. Tata. That had not occurred to me. But the computer got it. Thank God for artificial intelligence, or what? It's probably not AI, but even the AI that they say is AI isn't AI. So I don't know what to tell you. Gosh, that's a good one. So anyway, they go on to detail all of this problems, including the point that this is the second time Mr. Trump has nominated Mr. Tata. Well, Tata, you would think he's now going to be rejected again. They Tata'd him the first time, but guess what? Apparently, the astrologer whose tatas in which he was most interested said he wasn't going to be confirmed, but he has been. Maybe that's it. This is the second time that Trump has nominated Mr. Tata, who once called former President Barack Obama a terrorist leader, to a senior job in the Defense Department that requires Senate approval. It's amazing that he wasn't put up for vice president, as a matter of fact. I would say a terrorist leader, he's saying about Obama. In 2020, Mr. Tata'd out of consideration for that job after disclosures of his incendiary comments. Senator James Inhofe, Republican of Oklahoma, canceled Mr. Tata's confirmation hearing just 30 minutes before it was set to begin. Mr. Trump then sidestepped the Senate and appointed Mr. Tata to a Pentagon role in an acting capacity. So it wasn't like he was out at that point. He said, I'm going to put you in anyway, and I'm going to renominate you in the second administration. It's really fairly amazing, and I'll bet this article would reveal a few other interesting tidbits if I sat all the way through it. But I went looking during the break also for a different expression of it, I guess, a different reading of the name, in the hopes that we'd get a different view of it. And I think they went with Tata in this one, but this is Fox News. And by the way, though, the story that happened to pop up first on the video list was interesting, as was the programmatic ad that came along with it. The pre-roll ad here was for a very interesting and particular angle of the manosphere, and a particularly toxic one, which was interesting. I don't know who the guy is, but, another weightlifter dude with a beard dresses up in his tight-fitting suit and tie and sits there in front of the microphone with his beard waxed and slicked back hair and says he's an exercise guru, but only for rich guys. Which I find interesting, but that's his actual pitch. If you're a male, if you're a male who makes over $150K a year and you're embarrassed about your gut, I'll get you shredded or you'll pay nothing. Like, okay, sure, fine, whatever. If you're making over $150K a year, whatever. I don't know what that has to do with anything, but if you are, I would hope you wouldn't fall for something like that. But apparently people do, and it makes this guy money. Anyway, so that gives you an idea of what space this news is coming from. This is bringing Brigadier General Anthony, and I think they say Tata, onto the air. I'll play it. To comment, well, here's the story. I don't think we'll have to pay less than 30 seconds to get it.
Good evening, America, and welcome to Cross Country. We begin with a Fox News alert.
By the way, so the host here, flubs the pronunciation of America. Just, I don't know. He's working his way up the ranks.
Top Biden administration officials are sitting down with the Taliban. The deputy director of the CIA is among the U.S. representatives who met with Taliban leaders.
Now, everybody remembers that Donald Trump likewise met with Taliban leaders, brought them to Camp David, right? Amazingly, throw that out, goldfish it straight out of your head. We hate Biden. He's meeting with the Taliban. So there you go. Just one of those things. But let's get to the pronunciation if we can.
Today. It's the first such meeting since the U.S. killed the leader of al-Qaeda in Kabul in late July. Here to help us make sense of all of this, a former deputy commanding general in Afghanistan and the author of Chasing the Lion, retired Army General Anthony Tata. Sir, thank you so much.
There you go. So Tata is what he goes with there. And I don't know whether to buy that explanation or that pronunciation, given that he mispronounced America. Who knows? But I have a feeling like they might have asked him ahead of time, how do you pronounce your name? And although I didn't play, I guess the rest of it could be, yes, thank you for having me. My name is Tata. I don't know. Anyway, golly gee, I don't know what else to tell you. There's a lot of weird things on my screen right now because I'm looking at a Fox News video, and I got to get the hell out of here. All right. This is really distracting. It's quite amazing what makes it through the internet these days. Okay. Aren't there some rap lyrics I could be reading at this point? Man. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to move on at this point, though there's a lot of other very interesting points here being put forward by listeners following along here. Maybe I ought to catch up with this. It's not just people laughing at me reading rap lyrics, but let me scroll up here. What have we here? Lamb's End Beds is sending me a couple of items here, but let me see. This first one is, whoops, did a Republican accidentally say a truth? Let's find out what's going on here. Representative Mark Alford is angry to his angry constituents. I guess he got booed at a town hall meeting. Why are you guys doing these things? If you didn't want to hear my lies, why did you come here? That's a good one. That does deserve a crying emoji. Is that for real? Wow. We'll play it once again through the bad speakers.
Here's the problem. I kind of have to disprove a negative in that come January. Ma'am, did you want to yell something back there? Stand up.
Hi.
Okay, if you didn't want to hear my lies, why did you come here? All right? If you don't want to hear anything I say, why did you come here?
That's pretty good. All right, well, I didn't want to come here and hear your lies. Okay, well, too bad. You're going to hear them anyway. All right, that's an interesting one. So we'll put that aside and send that on to you. But what was it that, there was another one, an additional, we got to call back on one of the previous things. I fact check. I did not know this, and I didn't know it either. Is this Spencer Ackerman putting this up? Okay, so in response to the posting of the news that the Pentagon is restoring a portrait of General Robert E. Lee, which includes a slave guiding the Confederate general's horse in the background. This is the one I saw, and we needed to look up for later. But this is an interesting point. Good point. So there's a slave guiding the Confederate general's horse in the background. Restoring this to the West Point Library 3 years after a congressionally mandated commission ordered it removed. There's a whole separate article about it in the New York Times by way of background. Spencer Ackerman, though, making the observation, Colonel Robert E. Lee, thank you very much. He was only a general in an illegal army. He never made general, did he, in the United States Army? Apparently not. But, got to have a portrait of every general. He's a famous general who graduated from our ranks. Nah, you only promoted him as far as colonel, and there's plenty of those that don't have portraits in the West Point Library. So, good point there. Let's put that one aside as well. And I think there was something else, too, if I don't want to miss anything, but that seemed like a good one. And, okay. And Susan Collins is, all right, that's true. Oh, my stars and garters, says Lamb's End Ben. Susan Collins is alarmed. She's alarmed about JFK Jr. and the CDC massacre, as Greg put it yesterday. And there's more other ideas for further investigation to the collapsing Trump administration. But I think we got all of that one out of the way. All right, well, there you have it. Tata, a very weird situation all by itself. Did we get through everything that we needed to get through on that one? I don't think so. I think there's more. But now I have so many tabs open. I can't, honest to God, can't tell you where I was. I'm going to have to flip through all of these things to try to find my way back to where we were with the real perverts of Palm Beach County. But okay, there we are. The astrologer bit, right? Oh, I was just sort of interested in her missing the prediction on that, but we got that one into the record. Okay, but what a fascinating thing to find out. A, no computer can pronounce his name correctly. And B, that he was on the air. This is the kind of official he is. And this is, I guess, why Trump tried nominating the first time, didn't get him through, made him acting deputy or acting undersecretary, and then brought him back for the second administration. Not only is the kind of guy who tweets things like Barack Obama's a secret Muslim, but that also is involved in weird affairs and has found himself floating his way on down to pervert paradise in Palm Beach County as well. So, okay. And he was willing to go on the air and be mock angry about a president negotiating with the Taliban after Trump had himself negotiated with the Taliban, which is also very interesting. Okay, let's see. A couple of other things. Let me scroll through the other items I have for you in Instapaper and decide whether to flip back there or to the other things being brought to my attention as we speak. Also in the news today, this seems like an item you should have on your radar during the weekend, although there's really not much to it except, no one can be surprised by this at this point, but there it is. Trump cancels Kamala Harris's Secret Service detail. That, interestingly enough, had been extended by an undisclosed Biden order. That's interesting all by itself. Edward Isaac Dover, is it Dover? I think we've met too in passing as well, probably at ancient gathering like Netroots Nation or something like that. At any rate, the news is this: President Donald Trump revoked Kamala Harris's Secret Service protection on Thursday. That's yesterday, according to a copy of a letter reviewed by CNN, purportedly, but we'll see. Former presidents receive Secret Service protection for life. We'll see whether that stands after this administration. Harris, as a former vice president, received 6 months of protection after leaving office, according to federal law. That period ended on July 21st. However, her protection had been extended for an additional year via a directive, not made public until now, signed by then President Joe Biden shortly before leaving office. It has to be before, of course, according to people familiar with the undisclosed arrangement. Trump probably is also, by the way, claiming that it was signed by auto pen and therefore he doesn't have to obey it. But even if it was provably signed by hand, he'd claim he didn't have to obey it and was rescinding it. And he may even be able to do that. That is the order that Trump canceled in his letter, titled Memorandum for the Secretary of Homeland Security and dated Thursday. You are hereby authorized to discontinue any security-related procedures previously authorized by executive memorandum beyond those required by law for the following individual, effective September 1, 2025. Former Vice President Kamala D. Harris. The letter reads in full. He, of course, didn't see it, didn't read it, may or may not have signed the thing. But, okay, we do it in his voice anyway because he's responsible for it. The White House and Secret Service did not immediately respond to CNN's request for comment. Trump's ending of Harris's protection comes as she soon embarks on a multi-city high-profile book tour around the release of 107 Days, her new memoir on her short presidential campaign, set to be released September 23rd. That'll put her more in the public spotlight than she has been since leaving office, during which time she's attended only a few public events. The vice president is grateful to the United States Secret Service for their professionalism, dedication, and unwavering commitment to safety. Kirsten Allen, a Harris senior advisor, told CNN. That's all I can say. What else do they say about it? Presidents and presidential candidates face frequent security threats. As you know, there were 2 assassination attempts against Trump, allegedly, during his run for president last year. Harris, according to people familiar with her security operations, faced particular security concerns given that she was the first woman and first black woman in the role. These concerns only increased after she became the nominee. The people familiar with her security operations told CNN, and she was still at a high level into January following the campaign, with feelings about the election still raw. A Biden spokesperson declined to comment on what led to his signing the order extending Harris's protection, but what will now disappear is not just the agents assigned to guard her in person 24/7. Secret Service protection includes constant analysis of threat intelligence and covering in-person situations, emails, texts, and social media. With her detail canceled, Harris aides are worried they will lose the same access to threat warnings. The people familiar with her security operation said her home in the middle of Los Angeles will also stop being protected by federal agents. The cost of mounting any similar level of protection privately would be expensive, possibly going into the millions of dollars annually. Harris's husband, Doug Emhoff, lost his own personal detail on July 21st under the standard provisions for a former vice president's spouse. California Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom was briefed on Harris losing her protection late Thursday. A person familiar with the discussions told CNN that the governor's office could not comment on security arrangements or methods which may be activated as a replacement. However, Newsom's spokesperson Bob Saladay expressed outrage about Trump making the change. The safety of our public officials should never be subject to erratic, vindictive political impulses, he told CNN. Harris, as a Los Angeles resident, could also receive protection from the city police department. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass and Newsom were in touch Thursday evening about the situation. This is another act of revenge, following a long list of political retaliations in the form of firings, a revoking of security clearances, and more. This puts the former vice president in danger. And I have to look forward to working with the governor to make sure Vice President Harris is safe in Los Angeles, Bass told CNN in a statement. So, I assume they're going to take some action to provide her with some additional security, but another action of a piece with everything else that Trump does in his vindictiveness added to the pile, I guess. But anyway, thought you should be aware of that. Seems like something people will be talking about over the weekend. How about this one? I don't know I don't know what to make of this one, except to say, I guess we always knew that they were going to catch somebody doing this because, the Trump ranks are full of perverts. U.S. Border Patrol agent told women to show him their breasts to get into the country. Apparently, you can impose that sort of tax all by yourself, a new tariff for entering the country if you're given a gun and authority over border entry. Shane Millen, M-I-L-L-A-N, one L I'd say Milan maybe, but Shane Millen is accused of making women show their breasts to him during virtual admissions interviews. He faces 4 charges of deprivation of rights. I guess that's all they could come up with. And what do you know? Wouldn't it be weird if federal officials didn't take a tremendous interest in actually prosecuting this? A U.S. Border Patrol agent has been charged after being accused of ordering women to show him their breasts during the admissions process to enter the country, federal authorities say. Shane Millen, 53, he's an Xer, was charged with 4 misdemeanor counts of deprivation of rights under color of law. That's right. Federal prosecutors in the Northern District of New York announced on Thursday in a news release. Wow, well, all of that goes to, what's his name? John Rats. Sarcone III. That's right, because that's his district. And I don't know whether he's legitimately in office or not and whether we have to settle that. Wouldn't that be something if the prosecution had to be dropped because the wrong person was pretending to be acting U.S. attorney for the Northern District of New York? He willfully deprived 4 different women of their constitutional right to be free from unreasonable searches, the prosecutor said. Interesting. For whatever reason, now I'm doubting myself, but deprivation of rights under color of law has a specific section of the law that is well known, and I don't know why it's slipping my mind, but it's 2 something. 240, 280, 242, 18. There it is. 18 U.S. Code Section 242. Okay. Deprivation of rights under color of law. I don't know. That's sort of semi-stuck with me from law school. It seems important. Probably going to be a prominently charged violation at one point in our history. It may not be for several years, but okay. What else is new here? During virtual processing concerning their admission into the U.S., Millen told 3 women to, quote, expose their bare chests, unquote, to him. That's the legal language, probably not what he said, over a webcam. And a 4th woman to unveil her breasts to him while her bra remained on, according to prosecutors. They have to differentiate that. That was Alan Dershowitz, actually. He kept his underwear on. Millen made the demands for his own gratification, that's the quote, and lied to the women by saying he was conducting legitimate searches. Prosecutors said these are Zoom meetings. Wow. After being arraigned in Thursday on Syracuse, Millen was released pending a trial. Why release this guy? USA Today contacted Millen's defense attorney with the Federal Public Defender's Office on Friday, but has not received a response. We're paying for his defense. Hooray. In a statement emailed to USA Today, the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol said, maintaining the public's trust is vital to our mission. Okay, we didn't like this very much. This is the case whether the alleged misconduct occurs on or off duty. All right, we'll listen to their statement. Maintaining the public trust, vital to our mission. CBP does not tolerate misconduct within our ranks. When we discover any alleged or potential misconduct, we immediately refer it for investigation and cooperate fully with any criminal and administrative investigations, especially when it happens in the Northern District of New York and we think we can get away with it. This is the case whether the alleged misconduct occurs on or off duty, but this was on duty. Investigations are conducted thoroughly and with proper oversight, ensuring that appropriate action can be taken if and as needed, including working with law enforcement authorities, even if they're fakes. The statement continued. Consistent with our commitment to transparency, we make reports public whenever possible with legal and privacy constraints. Okay, so that's the news. We'll see where that one goes, but keep an eye on it. The fact that it's happening in the Northern District of New York under the authority of John A. Sarcone, III, I don't remember if it was A or not, should concern you. You'll need to keep an eye on it. Okay, well, I guess at this point, any choice would be a good one, so why not see if I can... Oh my gosh, I have so many tabs open I can't even find Blue Sky anymore. But Lamb's End Bed had another suggestion for us of something we might want to know about going into the weekend. Scott Dworkin, not Greg, but Scott Dworkin, posting this one on Blue Sky. What can I tell you? I haven't heard anything about this one, but let's see what's up here. Trump's deteriorating health, we've heard lots about that, raises alarms as he faces massive protests in New York City and D.C. This is Scott Dworkin's Friday post about the subject, showing the bruise on the back of the hand, of course. But what about these protests? What's happening? I guess you should know about that over the weekend because you might be able to have a chance to join. I'm happy, he says, to have more great news for you today, especially after another week of the Trump regime's chaos. Well, let's see what he's got. Trump's deteriorating health. That's making him happy? Okay, why not? Me too. Let's see. For months, the White House has claimed that bruises on Trump's hand were simply the result of heroic handshaking. They've also said he was diagnosed with chronic venous insufficiency in an attempt to explain the swollen ankles. We already know Trump is physically and mentally unfit for office. It's time we ramped up the pressure to demand answers from independent medical experts. Maybe more of interest, though, for you this weekend. There's a march coming on Wall Street. It happened. I'm sorry. Yesterday, thousands joined together. I missed it. For a march on Wall Street in New York City, organized by Reverend Al Sharpton's National Action Network. Folks were pushing for economic justice while honoring the 62nd anniversary of MLK's March on Washington. Gotcha. We know your address, and we will march and keep coming to you until we turn the economic equality in this country around, Reverend Sharpton said. I don't know whose address he meant. But there's a D.C. labor march as well. In D.C. yesterday, dozens of labor unions led a march with thousands of people to go protest Trump. Loud chants of free D.C. and it's time for Trump to go. The crowd was extremely fired up, it says, heading into the holiday weekend. Labor protests on Monday are set to be the biggest demonstrations in months, with hundreds of events planned in all 50 states and D.C. I think that's important to know. Something for you to be doing over the Labor Day weekend. Perhaps you can join in one or more of those marches. Definitely something you can do with your weekend besides lament the end of the summer. All right. So that's all we have time for today. We've made our decisions and we'll have to live with them as it becomes time to wind down. Let's see. Anything else that I can just blurt out real quick that might make some sense before ending for the week? I don't think so. However, still lots of long reads out there that we're going to have to find some way of weaving into our discussions these days. Reminder, though, with the holiday weekend coming up, I would have to guess that we're going to take advantage of and honor our Labor Day traditions here in the United States. If no one else will, we're going to do it by not working. However, I don't know. Lots of things going on over the weekend. We'll see what develops, certainly. But now time to hand things over to Justice Putnam for the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. And if the screen will come up and tell me what he's got planned for you, I can share that with you with a more relaxed pace. How about this? Trump is headed for a major disaster in court over his attempt to fire Lisa Cook. Right, we didn't get to discuss that anymore today, but that'll obviously continue into next week. Then on the rest of his menu today, Pete Hegseth, is purging everything black from the military, but he restored the giant painting of West Point of turncoat Robert E. Lee wearing his gray Confederate uniform and accompanied by a slave holding his horse. The bum from Queens and Ice Barbie put a target on her back as they revoked Secret Service protection for Kamala Harris ahead of her book tour. At least we got to all this stuff. And Native American firefighters detained and arrested by ICE while fighting the largest wildfire in Washington state. I don't believe that I was made aware yesterday when we heard that story that they were Native Americans. How do you detain them for illegally entering the country? Of course, international news, always a big part of the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. And guess what? I can tell you what he's got on tap for that after this.
From networksradio.com. You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
Here's the international deal. Tesla sales plunging again in Europe as anger at Musk keeps buyers away for the 7th month in a row. And President Milei of Argentina defended his influential sister against claims that she and other close associates profited from bribery schemes within the country's disability agency. See you next week. Have a great weekend.